Ask yourself, do you feel financially secure? Are you familiar with today's latest mortgage rates? Do you know what a PMI is, APR, insurance? If not, you might want to pay attention to me. Like you, I, in my ripe old age at 28, am not quite familiar with all of these terms. I struggle from paycheck to paycheck, as I'm sure many of you are familiar. This is not something that is new or unfamiliar to many of us. We are disadvantaged in our lives by the lack of financial literacy education provided to us throughout our high school careers. That being said, the state of our nation is poor. We are predisposed, due to the lack of resources and education available, to, as we become adults, make responsible financial decisions. More often than not, it's left to our parents to be able to teach us these things. However, many parents have their children long before they're financially stable or secure themselves. They're figuring out how not to live paycheck to paycheck, what an APR or mortgage or car loan, or how to do these things. And unfortunately, while they're learning, their lack of education has passed on from generation to generation. Our nation's debt is not unexpected. Look at it. Look at your friends. How many of them can you say are doing great financially? There were some interesting studies and statistics that I found in my research for this topic, directly from the Department of Education. They conducted 2 surveys in 2015 and 2017, where they basically went and asked students who were still in their high school years very basic questions like I asked at the beginning. What's a mortgage? What's an APR? The majority couldn't even answer those questions. These are simple. These are very simple terms, simple questions, and the majority of high school students surveyed could not answer them. This is unacceptable. We can do better. 60% of high school students, after leaving their post-secondary education, are already set up for failure. They cannot make ends meet. They don't know how to take care of their financial health. This is atrocious. Beyond the Department of Education, there were 2 separate studies performed by a financial literacist, 2 of them actually, Woodka and Siegfried. Their first study, conducted in 2015, they determined that financial education does make an impact. However, many of us are predisposed for financial behaviors, for better or worse, based on our gender. But this can be remediated and corrected going forward with proper education. In their survey, they used a sample group to look at students who received at least some level of financial education throughout their entire high school career. And on the other hand, for their control group, they tested students who didn't receive any. What they found was, between males and females, the females tended to engage in more financially risky behaviors, while the males were pretty much the same across the board. The students who had received the financial education, by the time they hit their 30s, this was a long-term study, so by the time they had aged up past high school, they had found those with education were doing very well. They knew when they turned out into the world how to financially take care of themselves because of the education they were provided. That being said, in the secondary study performed by the same people, Woodka and Siegfried, later in 2021, Woodka and Siegfried, in 2021, they did a secondary study where they showed that the education, while it is being provided in their original study, is inadequate across the board. The students that they checked out had been provided this kind of education throughout their entire high school career. However, they were still set up for failure. leading back to the Department of Education statistics. Even college students, who you would think maybe, might have a sense of financial literacy, on average, this is from the Department of Education, only 40% can make ends meet. That's with a degree. It didn't specify in their study whether that was just associates or just some level of college. However, this is completely erroneous and unacceptable for a great nation like our own. I think our country as a whole can do better. If financial education were mandatory across the board for our post-secondary education, we would see our nation's debt lower, significantly fewer people in the coming generations indebted, more than they can actually handle, at least. Debt's not necessarily a bad thing. We live with it every day. Credit cards are fun, right? But how often do you hear that somebody's wallowing in credit card debt? They racked up way too much and they cannot get it out from under it. Maybe your parents, friends, uncles, family members, maybe you're doing it yourself now. It's not uncommon anymore. But with the proper education and materials, it can be corrected. We can do better, and I firmly believe this is necessary. Can you say with good faith that you are ready? You are prepared?